everybody. Welcome to the Unfiltered Rise and Unfiltered Archaix. Today with me, right? Jason is here to talk some chats with me. And how are you doing today?
Well, I'm pretty good. I'm checking out your studio. It's very different than my own,
A
but
little bit.
I see that is there no sidebar where you can see the public chat?
I am just trying to, like I was telling you about my new live stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is newer for
Oh,
me, so
that's
I'm
cool.
gonna
That's all right.
I'm gonna
It's no big
find it
deal.
because I would rather see it as well because I think it's more fun. So a little bit while I'm looking for that for you to
Oh,
tell
it's okay.
anybody
I
that.
don't need it. I was just curious. I'm good.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, you're good. Just so that people know who you are, what you're about, and kind of what brought you to where you're at.
Oh well, my name is Jason, and I've been on probably close to 300 podcasts now. So I would consider myself a veteran at it. I do have about 1,300 videos on YouTube, but prior to 6 years ago, before I ever started a YouTube channel, I had already been in publishing for 20 years. And it's research is my blood, it's my passion. I am an ex con. I spent a long time in prison. And by virtue of spending so much time in a prison cell, I was able to read a tremendous amount of material. So I have taken that and I basically turned lead into gold. And my community follows my research. I have a lot of fact checkers. And although I did come from a puritanical Southern Baptist family and upbringing, yeah, around 40 years old, I pretty much divorced myself from. I researched myself right out of Christianity. So that's basically what happened. And uh, really, the archaics research is the fundamental is that I wanted to do something very different because a lot of the people I follow, they're into like date sequence predictive analytics, machine learning, deep learning. They're into the core arithmetic that makes a lot of different unique programs, things that are pre-AI, things that things that were necessary to develop before AI ever came around. These are the type of systems that I develop. I have a cipher group, which is a bunch of coders and people from the public that paid a lot of money to get in the group. But this is what we do. We run prediction software on all kinds of things. But my channel, Archaix, all I wanted to do was show from the historical record what theoretical physicists were already entertaining. This bridge between the psyche and the simulation, and how it's very real to us, and how we don't live in a real reality, we live in a perceived reality. And the closer we get to a virtual world, with data centers and these massive server farms able to manufacture a falsified version of events using the media, fooling us to the point where we can't differentiate between fact and fiction. This is where we're going right now. This is the world we're going. Or what I wanted to do was create a forum where people could explore the idea that we are already in an AI controlled simulation, and that my evidence and that my value isn't from the theoretical, it isn't from the models, the computer models and the machine learning and deep learning models that these theorists promulgate. My value comes from the fact is I'm showing definitive mathematical patterns in history that cannot be true, and yet this is exactly what we have found. We're talking about resets. We're talking about triggers, societal triggers that cause resets. We're talking about looping constructs, repetitive timelines, these amazing palindromic sequences that go forward and backward in time. They're all in history. They're all verifiable. I show them on my channel to promote the idea, to show people from the historical record, we can literally prove that we're already in a mathematical construct.
Wow. Well, and everybody knows that I'm Christian, but I'm also a different Christian than some. And I know my audience will be like, whoa, what's this about? But we have to hear about a lot of things to understand the world you're in. And as you, I like to research. And so, when I met you and I came on your channel, I just felt this automatic, like we had like this amazing chat. And I knew that you and I could definitely have another amazing chat. So I'm so amazed and happy that you came on. I'm happy that you can tell people about stuff. Like I can tell you this when I research things, weird things come up. And even just a week ago, they had like
Right.
something from CERN pop up that said, "Oops, sorry, we erased 5 other worlds that were like." What? What are you talking about? Right? They literally put this out. This is not a conspiracy. They put it out that they accidentally erased 5 other, you know, worlds, quote unquote. And then that was all. Like, oops, sorry, our bad. What? What is that?
Wow. Well,
I
to
mean,
clarify just a little bit, um, that one does not call themselves a Christian does not negate their spirituality at all. On my own channel, I have gone through the Christian records. I've gone through every iota that Jesus has spoke. I have isolated all the parables. I've done whole videos and teachings on why Jesus chose the parable method, and that parables, these similitudes, similes, allegory, these aren't the truth. They're images of truth. One thing, Jesus was a master teacher, and he understood that we live in the photo negative of a real reality, and he understood that in order to make something real, we first have to acknowledge it's a lie. And what I mean is that even when it comes to the articles of faith, to call those things that be not as though they are is to literally acknowledge the existence of a lie and alchemize it into truth. So Jesus is basically telling you to just like Nike, just do it. Act as if you are, and you will be. So entertain the fiction, so it will become a fact. This is faith. So I don't have any problem with the teachings of Jesus. Christianity, as I've said many times, it's the highest moral and ethical fabric of sayings, and it's a soup made of all the best ingredients. Jesus quoted many Buddhist maxims. He quoted a lot of different things that didn't just come from the Judeo spectrum. Came from a lot. I mean, we have whole sayings came straight out of Jesus's mouth that have been found on Egyptian wall texts and ossuaries. So we know he was either well read or, like I said, it's a soup made of the best ingredients. It does not take away from your spirituality that you don't believe that he actually had to die, bleed, be tortured, hung up on a deal, flew up into the sky in front of 500 witnesses. These are all attachments that I believe were added by the church later to the real
well,
story that had actually unfolded, which was about redemption and the promise of resurrection. All the miracles were added centuries later.
and no matter what people believe, like we know one thing for sure. We know that there is one religion that ultimately all the religions, right, branch from. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about so badly because you are so well read about all the religions. And I've often said I don't identify with a religion. I just identify with Jesus Christ and the Bible and my own thoughts. And I already left a cult. Like I'm not, I'm not, I don't want to do that anymore. So
Right.
what I hope for people is to open up their minds enough to see some of this other stuff. And definitely one of them is, it seems to me, at least with everything I study and every path I go down, I end up back at the beginning, right? To the very
Oh, you
first.
you got to be talking about Babylon.
Yes, sir. And I thought, oh, what better person to talk to about this? Because it's very concerning. We had Epstein files drop. And for people that don't know, there was some stuff in there that was very interesting about red stuff that keeps us alive, and Mormons. And, Zorro Ranch is very interesting to me with manipulation and CRISPR technology and different stuff like that. So we have to at least address the elephant in the room, right? We have to, because how did this happen and how did they gain control, right?
Yeah, the elephant in the room, you need to give me a little bit more clarity. You're talking about human sacrifice.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You're basically
I'm
talking
just
about,
being careful because of you. I don't know what we
okay,
can and
well, I mean,
can't
I
say.
openly talk about it on my channel. I mean,
Okay. All right.
so
Good.
the like, I'll give you an example. The ancient Egyptians, they hated the children of Set, and they had a code name for them. They called them Typhonians. And this was ginger-haired people. The ancient Egyptians couldn't stand people with red hair. They didn't like they didn't like Caucasians with red hair. So they would sacrifice them. They would sacrifice the Typhonians, and it was a part of the doctrine of substitution that they had gotten from Babylon. The doctrine of substitution. It's a practice. It's very ancient, and it pretty much bled out through the trade routes to all other nations. Egypt, it's not original to Egypt. It's an import. So, but it was Babylonian, which would be Akkadian, ultimately Sumerian, maybe even Ubaid before the Sumerians. We don't know how far it goes back, but we do know that Abraham, which is the father of all three of the Judeo-Christian Islamic, faiths, seems to be the origin of this human sacrifice motif, because we have him wanting to sacrifice his own son for a religious principle. Well, he didn't really want to. Yahweh wanted him to do it. He didn't want to, but he was going to. So the doctrine of substitution, I believe, is absolutely evil. The idea, especially in the Judaic faith today, the idea that you can be guilty of violating the 615 Levitical and Deuteronomy, the laws in Deuteronomy, and you can be guilty of doing them all as long as you find a scapegoat and you perform your ritual at the right lunar festival. You're able to transpose all your guilt into the scapegoat. What you're referring to with the Epstein stuff and what I'm referring to with the Typhonian deals is they're not using an animal anymore. Even the Judaic practice of the red heifer is a symbol. It's a red cow. The red cows they have in Israel now came from Texas. But anciently, the red cow was substituted for a red-headed human. It used to be red-headed people that were considered the best sacrifice to the gods. So, and they were called Typhonians. But,
do you know why that is, by chance? Just on the red hair?
Well, the Egyptians were black-eyed. They had straight black hair, and for a period of time, their nation had been overrun by foreigners, and they called them the shepherd kings. And another term for them was Hyksos, or some pronounce Hyksos. I don't know, but it's very well attested in the historical record that foreigners for about 350 years ruled over them. And a lot of biblical scholars believe that this is the introduction of the Israelites. The Hyksos period makes sense that the Israelites were actually there, and we've been given history a little bit backwards. We've been told that the Israelites were slaves for 400 years in Egypt, but that's not what the historical record shows. The historical and archaeological record shows that the Hyksos ruled over the Egyptians, and only in the last 40 or 50 years was the tables turned, and the Hyksos were at the pretty much enslaved right before the Exodus. They actually ruled most of the time they were there. They were hated by the Egyptians. They were called Typhonians. Typhon is associated to Phoenix, the color red. So when they were able to capture some, because the Hyksos fled and they got out of Egypt, but those that were straggling and left behind were sacrificed. Later on, when they had no red-headed humans to sacrifice, the Egyptians and the Babylonians would substitute it with a red heifer, and it was and according to them, their priesthoods, they found it an acceptable sacrifice because it's still a mammal, it's a cow, but it's a human. Well, the doctrine of substitution is where the Jews today got the term goyim. It's why they call everybody who's non-Jewish a cow. That's what goyim is referring to. It's derogatory, but it means that you can be scapegoated. So the contention between Jews and Christians that goes back centuries and even millennia is because it's literally in the Judaic faith that anytime that you're guilty of something, or if you want to victimize somebody, Christianity is there for that purpose. Christians are goyim, so not only can we use them as scapegoats, that's what the Jews feel, not only can we, according to our Talmudic laws, we can use them as scapegoats. We can do anything we want to, what we want to their children. I know you've read some of the Talmudic passages as I have. We don't need to talk about them. We don't need to go into any detail, but in their faith, they have justified every activity known to man against Christians. This is what, and one of the scapegoat techniques that's used against Christianity, though, is the law of substitution. And we need to go in another direction, because all that's going to do is go into the medieval and Renaissance period, where we have a lot of artwork that explains exactly what was being done to European children. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that the elite in Hollywood have been accused doing recently. So the doctrine of substitution would go back to Babylon, and it's exactly where most of the Old Testament was written. Most people don't know that, the story of Adam and Eve, it goes back to Babylonian temples. It doesn't go back to the beginning, to the pre-flood world. The Adamu is a Babylonian Old Semitic reference to mankind. A man used to go to a Babylonian temple, and he would be met with Vestal virgins. And they're not virgins, but that's what they're called, because they too, they go through a purification rite. And the Vestal virgins, after they've lain with a man, go through the purification rite, and they come out. They're made to walk through a veil, and they get water sprinkled on them. When they come out, they're technically, by the priesthood standards, a virgin. So all men who go in. This is how the Babylonian temples were. Do you want me to explain that ceremony, or were you wanting to say something?
Oh, no. I was just coughing there for a minute. I have a little bit of allergies going on, but I was going to say, a lot of the stuff you're saying is really resonating with me, because I came on your show and I did explain some things, and, in the temple for the Mormon LDS, they do the Typhonian Y when they're in the temple. They do it when they do the true order of prayer in a circle around an altar. They bring their hands up to a Y shape, as well as they go through a veil. They do a lot of these same things. There's a water
It is a temple.
cleansing. Yep. And you do the washings and anointings, and they used to get you naked in a bathtub. My great grandma told me that, but they don't do that anymore. It's more of a blessing and an anointing, and then you get your new name, which sounds very familiar. You get your new underwear, which also is a very similar situation. So all of this stuff.
New underwear is new garment, new white garment.
New garment. Yep. The same as some of the garments worn by other people. It's not just Mormons, right? This is like other people do this. And this seems to be very old. And I think that people are missing where this started from, because every time I tried to go back to start this history podcast I'm going to do, I was like, oh, I'll just go back to the parents. Oh, I'll just go back to the grandparents. Oh my gosh, I'm at the Mayflower. Well, where do you stop? And Joseph Smith himself came from the descendants. He's a descendant of the Nile of the Nine, Irish, right? So this gets really important when we are talking about all of these connections, like what you're saying. It resonates to me. And he has been said in a little bit more controversial update from one of the neighbors, that they were wandering around in the dark one night, and they were looking for a sacrifice for their quarter moon ritual, what he ended up doing. But, the girl next door wanted to provide a human one, and he said, no, an animal will do, a fully black one. So look, I'm just saying, guys, you got to listen when it comes to things with an open heart and an open mind to find out how this was organized, because that's exactly what happened, not just with one religion, with many. So.
No doubt. So in the 3,000 years ago, in the Neo-Babylonian period, on Nebuchadnezzar the First of Babylon, and previous to that, in the 13th, 14th, 15th century, which is the Babylonian Old Kingdom, we have Hittite and Amorite dynasties. During this period, the priesthood, the Edamu, they had ruled for a long time. And when a man conducting his business, like let's say I was a cooper, and I'm making shoes, and my wife may be a tailor, and she may specialize in some type of female garments or whatever, and we would have different areas of the temple we were allowed to. There's places she cannot go, but I would go into the temple whenever I felt like, whenever I felt the need to go. It wasn't just the Sabbath. As a matter of fact, there was very special ceremonies that were on Saturdays in these Babylonian temples. But the rest of the week was wide open and for people to come in. And this is the core ritual for the average Joe. in Babylon. He would bring some money to the temple, and money can include, probably back then, that far back it wasn't coinage, but it could be copper or bronze ingots, which had value. You get them from ship's captains and mariners. It could be beautiful polished shells, which have very low value. It could be bags of wheat. It could be provender. It could be animal feed. I could bring a goat. I may bring 2 ducks and a couple of mallards and a chicken. Whatever it is I'm bringing to the temple, they accepted everything. So I may have made an awesome ornate dagger, one of a kind dagger, whalebone, baleen, and I submit it, and they know it's valuable because it's one of a kind, it's homemade. So these are the type of things that people would bring to the temple, and I would bring my gift to the temple, and there would be a priest, or there would be guardians and a priest, and he's really an assessor. This is what he does. He's assessing the value of what you brought in the gates of the temple, and he's very good at what he does. So, according to the value of what you brought, you would be taken to a station inside the temple, and the Vestal virgins in the antechamber that are all in there milling about, they have fruit, often an apple, but sometimes it's other fruit, mango, whatever. So if my gift, if it was noticed that it would take a week's wages of Babylonian wages, shekels, whatever, to actually buy what I'm giving, and yet I'm pretty much middle class, I would bypass a lot of the lower chambers, and they would put me somewhere in the middle, according to my station, according to my gift. Because the rich and the elite, they've got their own Vestal virgins. You know how this works. So they would take me to the antechamber that I provided value for. And I would go and there would be 6 or 7, 8 females in there, and they're all Vestal virgins. And whichever female that I chose, once she realized that my attention was on her, she would offer me that fruit. On the walls of these antechambers were friezes, were artwork, beautiful sculptures, and it would always be like a palm tree, a phoenix palm, which was representative of the tree of life. So it would be on the walls, and in front of the tree of life, they'd be on the ceiling too. Palm fronds would be on the ceiling, and you can read all about this in Robert Graves' material, like the White Goddess, the Greek myths, Israelite and Jewish traditions and myths. He's written a lot of good stuff. So he's pretty much undisputed authority on Greek antiquities, but he's gone pretty deep in the Semitic faith as well. He has to, because the Greeks. So anyway, she would offer me the fruit. If I took the fruit out of her hand and I bit it, then she's the Vestal virgin that I've chosen, and she's going to grab me by the hand, and we're going to go into a Vestal bedchamber. And when the man lays with the Vestal virgin, it's sex. You're actually paying for sex. This is sacral prostitution. These are how the temples in Babylon ran. And you were giving your gift to the priesthood, the temples, which was giving it to God. But at the same time, you were honoring the goddess. This is what the Abrahamic religions have removed from the field. But the Abrahamic religions derive from this temple system where the goddess was honored in carnal relations. So this would also provide altar boys and new Vestal virgins for the priesthood, because these girls would get pregnant, and no one would know who their fathers were. They belonged to the priesthood. So this was an honor of the goddess. I would have carnal relations with her, and when we're done, I would be taken deeper into the temple, and sometimes I'm allowed to meet a priest, ask questions. He can dash water on me. He can absolve me of my sins. There's special booths where I can do confessions. The confessions of the temple isn't what you think it was. It's just like the Delphic oracle. The oracles of Delphi, Didymus, Olympus, all these oracles were intelligence agencies, and they all communicated with each other. They had runners and dispatches every day, multiple times throughout the day. The oracles were in communication, and they were in communication with local provincial holders, province governors. They were with temples, with mariners, ship captains, harbor masters. Information flowed in the ancient world faster than most people understand. And people thought that these people were predicting the future, the oracles and the oracular priestesses in the temples, and they weren't. Their intelligence was just almost in real time, because runners were always bringing satchels. Satchels were always coming, they were always exchanging information, and these temples had whole chambers set aside full of scribes that were doing just that, taking information from people coming into the temple, because they were asked, what do you do? Who do you work for? Do you have any outstanding debt? What's going on in your neighborhood? And the people were encouraged by the priesthood to tell them all the facts and all that, because they're giving it to God. This is what the common people thought. I need to tell them about the bully over here. I need to tell them about the people over here selling bread, even though they're only allowed to sell 40 bushels a week. I know they're selling 85, and I mean, people are snitching on each other, and they're getting to go lay with a Vestal Virgin without even paying for a sacrifice, because what they brought was called a homage, and the homage is verbal. You're bringing your sacrifice to the priesthood is verbal, and you're guaranteeing some really good intel and information, so you don't have to bring money, you don't have to bring goats, you don't have to bring chickens, none of that stuff. So the ancient temples were intelligence agencies, just like the oracles were. And they probably worked with the oracles. But I do have some videos on YouTube where I go and explain how they accomplished this, because it's once you understand the whole layout, it's like, wow, it is amazing what they were able to do in ancient times, and yet put off the idea to the people that everything here is sacrosanct, everything here is so holy. You're engaging in activities for the god and the goddess, and that's what it was. And the public view of the priesthood was very favorable and very good. And I'm going to tell you now, ancient Babylonian temples did not indulge in human sacrifice. They didn't do it. This didn't come about till after the Abrahamic religions. After Abraham, and the Israelites, the Jews, Christianity, Islam. This is when we're talking about late Bronze Age, is when humans started taking the place of animals. It was originally animals.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of what you're saying ties into a lot of things I've been researching, like that people don't fully understand. And I think that's
isn't the Mormon church is like an intelligence apparatus, from what I
hear. Not only that, but as I've been studying Joseph Smith, like all of his posterity and a bunch of people that were, his brothers, sisters, that go undercover, but really actually went to found a lot of America, married into the Hawaiian royalty, married into the multiple tribes. They set out to spread other religions, not just Mormonism. And this is part of, the Mayflower and the Rosicrucians. But not only this, they were part of Aspiring. And I'm sorry, his wife's last name originally was Hale. And for anybody that remembers the American back and forth business of spying, Hale was very important, and especially Nathan Hale, which she was directly related to. He had 7 ancestors on the Mayflower, and so did she, because they were related. And not only that, but they married into the Gould family of Salem for 6 generations, and they were involved in the Inquisition at Salem. So all of this stuff makes a whole lot more sense when you lay it on a table and you go, whoa, just like what you said about there, right? Like we've got the honeypots, obviously, and they keep continuing this clear into forever, I guess,
Yeah, well, today things do go there. They may be a little bit darker today. I mean, today we have these sophisticated nightclubs. These nightclubs hire honeypots. The nightclubs have, these drop dead, gorgeous, beautiful young females come in there. They come to wait tables. They come to be bartenders. They come to dance. Some of them come in there to do a whole lot more in the back rooms. But you have to have like prestigious status and be well known in the community. They got to know you're not law enforcement before they'll give you that back room access. So this is all in every major city in the United States. So most of these real high end nightclubs, yeah, they're not owned by random people. a lot of times you will find, man, these guys were former Delta, they were former intelligence, they were former Air Force. They're all networked together. And I don't have any evidence of this, so I'm not going to say it's a fact. I'm just going
I
to say
do.
that
I
I'm
have a
just,
fact for you,
well, no,
and
what
you
I'm
can
saying
put
is
it.
what I'm about to say, I
Yeah.
don't have any evidence for it,
Oh,
but I do. I'm going to say that it is my opinion that a lot of that when these girls come into these facilities, they have access to their IDs. So they instantly run a check on them using far more sophisticated things that the public sector has access to. And they know instantly there's almost nobody who's going to look for this girl. There's almost no one who even knows this girl is even in this city right now. And they might have another girl work on her for a while and get all the details out and find out that, yeah, she's totally alone, has nobody to, well, this is the girl that disappears. And this is happening all over major cities, all over the United States. And becomes part of the 411 cases.
well, and to your point, if people want to do a fun little research project, look into Sirhan, who was, a Rosicrucian. I have his little copy of his card, and he was very involved with the occult, and they were very involved in what? Going to this strip bars called the Cat Patch. So that's real. That's a real actual fact. And it plays into Mormons and RFK and the mob and things that people go, that can't be right. Like, that's too much stuff. And I'm like, nope, it is right because there's like this amount of facts, and we see it, but it isn't just the Mormons. Don't forget, when you talk about David M. Kennedy, who's best friends with Michelle Sindona, who's who God's banker for who the Catholic Church, it goes into every single one of these. It's corrupt from the get, and that's why I want to talk to you about it.
It's really it's interesting because the Mormons have never been on my radar until I talked to you. I read the Book of Mormon and I pulled out the information on the sun darkening episode, which is dated as 34 AD in the Book of Mormon. I pulled out some information on the Nephites, trying to identify any of them as Native American cultures that may have been here, like Toltec or Zapotec. I've been trying to do some chronological stuff, but there's just not enough information in the Book of Mormon for me able to cross identify anything in the secular histories. But I had read the Book of Mormon, and I've read some Mormon commentaries that were talking about the great destruction that had happened around 34 AD. And this is what made me suspect to it, because a lot of the things that it was describing in there in the historical record among other nations happened in 31 BC. Didn't happen in 34. The Book of Mormon wanted to put it at 34 to make it look like it was close to 33 when Jesus was crucified. The world's supposed to be falling apart, the sun darkens and all that. But all those texts have been found to be forgeries, like the Pontius Pilate deal. So I believe Jesus existed. I just don't believe that all the mythological attachments, that those all came much later. It's as a matter of fact, I've had a lot of community support for like my videos on the Gospel of Marcion, where I show Jesus's life, what he did, what he taught, how extremely spiritual it is, how I still live by these tenets today. However, the Gospel of Marcion is devoid of anything miraculous. You understand? His teachings were supernatural, but he didn't do any miracles. He didn't fly up into the sky, and he didn't resurrect from the dead. It is a story of human sacrifice, and it's one of the things that kind of offends me. It's in my opinion, a true spiritual being would never need the death of another in order to vindicate themselves to the oversoul, because the oversoul is too loving for that. It's a part of the deceit. So, a lot of people disagree, and that's cool, but the real truth of the matter is, whether you're a Christian or not, Jesus was very specific when his disciples asked him, listening to all his teachings. They got overwhelmed, and they said, you know what, in the end, what if we were to reduce everything, just what is it we got to do? And Jesus simply answered that, do unto others as you would have men do unto you. And that is the golden law. It's the only law. The golden rule is the only rule to me, because if you live by that, none of the other rules applied. You wouldn't have to remember any other rules if you did that. So it's to me, it's very spiritual. Christianity is very spiritual, whether you believe that these miracles happen or not. It doesn't matter. It's the teaching that applies that makes it spiritual, not the actual happenings. I don't care if a man walked on water. It means nothing to me spiritually.
Yeah. And I think it's just so important that we understand if we believe in good and we believe in, miracles, and we believe, as I do, in all the goodness, there is quite the opposite of that sitting there right to the side of this, okay? And you will never fully understand everything until you see the both sides of things, because the point of the right and left hand path, right, is the right, for people that don't know, the left is more Luciferian, we'll just say it that way, and the right isn't, okay? But the right hand path knows both, and so does the left hand before they choose. That is the part that pisses me off so bad about the Mormons, because first of all, I was never told crap about any of this stuff being Masonic or weird stuff, and it really
Yeah.
made me mad. Now I'm like the bad ex-girlfriend, right? Like, okay, I'm telling everybody, don't date this church, right? And I just think it's unfair. I think if people want to do whatever they want to do, I'm not here to persecute people as long as you're not harming animals or children or whatever, and all of that. But like, at the end of the day, if you're not doing that, then it's none of my business. But here is my business. You're telling old grandmas that are the goyim, and they are, because what do? They go to the temples every single day. And they do these things, okay? And then on top of it, they hide it for those, like you said, that go on the special days, because then it just looks normal. It just
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
normal. So I don't
You
know.
didn't sign up for that shit, huh? That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I get it. It's like I said, Mormonism wasn't on my radar. I didn't know. I always kind of thought it was intriguing that way out here in Utah there's a temple, but I never really thought more about it until I talked to you. And like I said, I was unimpressed with the Book of Mormon. I was further unimpressed with the fact that uh, I had read so many books about Joseph, just trying to figure out where did the Book of Mormon come from. I want to know about the gold plates because we have an ancient Diocletian legend about 2 gold tablets that were found that had the entire history of the Great Pyramid, when it was built. It even gave numbers and years that you can use to calculate. And I have this published in one of my books on the Great Pyramid and these gold tablets. So the gold plates kind of stood out to me, like, oh, okay, where did they get this? Because I've heard this before. But yeah, I just there's just too much now that I know. There's too much intelligence apparatus linked to the Mormons now. Now that I know, now that you've educated me and I've been able to do a little bit of searching and looking on my own, it's like, wow. It's like, if you get real high up in the Mormon church, then you're probably no different than the upper echelons of the Scottish Rite or the Rosicrucians or the Pilgrim Society or Jesuits. Once you get high enough, you're pretty much in the peerage, and that's what it's all about. Being in the peerage, it doesn't matter what the drapery is to the public. Once you're so high up in any organization, this is what it was called 300 and 400 years ago. You're among the peerage, and this is like you're the movers and shakers of the world. You actually know what's going on and who's running shit. Nobody below the peerage knows. So it's pretty interesting what you brought to the table about the Mormons, and I applaud you for that. It's like a sucker punch. People like, man, it's our own backyard. We didn't know this.
Well, and it's a little bit concerning when we do see the alignment of things like royalty. John Dee is very associated in his teachings with all of the teachings at Dartmouth, which his brother was attending, but not only his brother, his mom's, the nephew of his mom, like, is there, all these people are there learning this stuff, and then they're taking this out to everyone, but they're calling it different things. And this is where the corruption comes, at least on this point, right? There's multiple corruptions everywhere, but at least for what I know is, the brother-in-law takes off and becomes a seeker, and he takes off to Canada. And then we, as a people with Brigham Young, come here and we set up this whole kingdom of Zion. Okay, that's what it is. That's what they call it. We were the beehive state. Well, hell, I wonder what that meant. I know what it means. The perfectibilists, you mean? The Illuminati, you mean? Like, why is my bloodline the Stewart bloodline when my family was supposed to be poor farmers from nowhere? But they aren't. their South Africa stewards that's supposedly the king's son that's illegitimate. What's happening there? And why are John Dee's teachings being taught at Dartmouth and then downward to Joseph Smith through his brother Hiram? Like, we look at all this and step back and go, come on, really?
So his brother was named Hiram?
He was, and it was spelled the Masonic way until later when they relocated.
Hiram?
But they changed it later.
Like Hiram Abiff?
Yep, you bet.
Wow.
You bet. And not only that, but here's the thing, when Joseph retrieves the plates, they told him to bring his brother, his oldest brother, of course, the oldest. His brother died. So how did they do that? I don't know, but they dug him up because they ran it in the newspaper and it's there and there's an article and they dug him up. So, okay, that's interesting, especially when we know Skull and Bones, William Russell Huntington, whatever, Huntington Russell, I think it's the other way around, is Joseph Smith's fifth cousin. Why is that? Why is that? That's very curious. And why did they integrate themselves into the families of everybody, like the Hawaiian royalty to own land, like the Native American tribes to take their land? And they did, in like thousands of acres. They founded Pontiac, Michigan, and they founded MacTown, Illinois. And then other people take off, like James Strang, and start the Halcyon Illuminati. That's literally what he called it. And he's just this Mormon guy that, by the way, the government helped get his executors out of there after they took care of that problem. So strange. It's a little bit strange.
How far is the temple from the Salt Lake?
Salt Lake Temple is in Salt Lake, right in Salt Lake. So it's on the 111th parallel. And so is every other very important building out here, including like the one for orphans. Why can't I think of that name right now?
Yeah.
The Secret Society. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I'll think of it in a second. But all of these buildings are on the 111th here. And, I can tell you, they dug up Joseph Smith too. They dug up his brother. They dug them all up and made canes and put their hair in the knobs. Like, what the hell is going on here? And you guys are all just fine with it? Like, I'm not. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't like that. And it isn't just them. It's all of them. That's what I'm constantly saying. Why did the Seixas family, Seixas, Gershom Seixas, very important, half Sephardic, half, crypto Jew, I guess we can say, and the Levies, which was the mother of Isaac, Seixas. These people are very important people. Okay. They came here, they smuggled actual religious paperworks here that were important for the Torah. And they smuggled them here from where? Portugal. Why was he having to smuggle anything? Well, because he was involved in the Inquisition there in Portugal, had to convert. And then next thing we know, he's in with George Washington. He's at the first Thanksgiving. This is a very important man, Gershom Seixas, okay? But his son is teaching.
Gershom is Jewish, and so is Levi.
Yes, absolutely. One is full Ashkenazi, the other is half and half Sephardic, half. So when we see this intermixing of the families, right? And we've got this family here, like right at the table of George Washington. These people are important, okay? Teaching Joseph Smith Hebrew when he can't read or write English sounds perfect. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like that's what was true. Yeah, no. This is bloodline stuff. This is important.
It's interesting.
In my opinion. Yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder, with basically the Jewish takeover of the United States, starting with the assassination of President Kennedy in 1901, who was replaced by a Jewish president. Most people don't know Roosevelt was Jewish. So 1902, Roosevelt begins. Then we had another Roosevelt after that. Then the New Deal, and the Bolsheviks took over Russia, and then they instigated both world wars. So kind of makes you wonder, now taking these things into consideration, if Islam might just overrun Palestine and Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and all that, and the Jews have a temple waiting for them right here in Utah.
They say that. And not only, let me blow your mind. Okay, so one of the first Mormons that was here, in America, that came here and was part of this whole big movement, his name was Orson Hyde, but he was Jewish, and he was sent on a mission. And he went to Israel before the Balfour Declaration, very important, to claim with a flag in the dirt on the Mountain Olives, like really a piece of that land dedicated to the LDS Church. What was going on there? What was going on there?
What I find fascinating is we have this dichotomy that's irreconcilable. And it's the fact that you can go through all the Old Testament writings and you will find out that there are no promises from Yahweh, the Almighty, El Shaddai, every single name for God, Beelzebub, Saphon, it doesn't matter. Whatever, there are no promises anywhere in the Old Testament that God has made that the Jews or Israelites will ever have an afterlife, that they will ever go to heaven. These references are not found in the Old Testament. There's no promise of going to heaven. Every promise in the book of Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all the law of the Old Testament, every promise on the conditions, on the promises and on the curses text, every promise is of worldly gain. Every promise is of your sons and your daughters, your wife, your family. I will give you kith and kin. I will give you cattle. I will give you shekels. But there are no promises that you're going to have an awesome afterlife. None of that. Christianity, which derives from Judaism, is just the opposite. Christianity is foregoing everything of the world, which is tainted with the God of this world, which is evil, and we live for those things that are spiritual. And there are promises of an afterlife, of going to heaven, being angelic, being conformed as one of the sons of God in the New Testament. Isn't it unusual that these two faiths are so opposite, but one is supposed to have come from the other?
That is interesting. That is true. And with Mormonism, they even have a different view. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know the Mormon view.
Yeah, they're going to create their own planet. They call this Kolob usually. Here is like a piece of that, because you're going to become a god, and then you're going to have your wives, and you'll have many, many wives, and you'll make spirit children, and then you make the spirits for the kids of your world to make them, jump into the body, kind of like Scientology in a way, if that makes sense. And so, to my knowledge, at least on the base teachings, they don't believe in reincarnation, but you have to remember it's only for, the profane what they teach. So I don't know for sure on that. I just know that they definitely
sounds like the Vikings.
Yeah, exact. Well, funny you should say that. They're
Valhalla.
Yep, they have a lot of that in their bloodlines. And, the other thing that they have in their bloodlines, which I'm finding, which is very strange, is this old story about Prince Madoc. Do you know this story about John Dee's Prince Madoc?
Madog?
It's a Madog, and sometimes they say Madoc, but I guess it's with a G. But
is this a Welsh prince? Is this a Welsh prince?
I have
heard the story, but you'll have to remind me the details.
Sure. Yeah. He came to the shores of Alabama far before Christopher Columbus ever thought about it. And he came here and mated with people and took wives and made the tribe of the Mandan.
Oh, man. What? I just talked about this on my channel about the Mandan.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the name of the guy that did this. So I must have read it somewhere because I was familiar he was Welsh.
Did. Guess where you read it?
I just told my community not even 2 weeks ago on a live video that the Mandan are green-eyed and blue-eyed Caucasian Native Americans, and it's been determined that 1 out of every 3 of the words in their language is Welsh.
And guess what? The first ever translation of the Book of Mormon was other than English. It was Welsh. And there's a big reason why. And guess what my lineage is? I have some native, it's actually Aboriginal Canadian, because I'm Micmac, a little bit Micmac, and then I'm mostly British, quote unquote, but Welsh is the part over that, and then Scottish, Irish, and some, different Netherlands. So everybody here has a really similar profile, is why I bring this up. Over 70% of us here in Utah, I studied this today because I wanted to know why Epstein would want specific Utah anything, right? With with their life substance. We'll say that. I don't know what, I guess you don't get in trouble. So their blood. And most of us are O. Okay. Well, this presents a very interesting situation, especially when we get into the Stuart line and the Rosicrucian narrative, and especially when we talk about whether or not Jesus Christ had children. Look, it's something that the Mormons believe. Okay. But when you get into the teachings of John Dee in this book of Maddog, John Dee wrote this: I, Maddog, born of goodly parents, was taught somewhat in the learning of my father. Now listen, this is the Book of Mormon. I, Nephi, being born of goodly parents, therefore I was taught somewhat in the learning of my father. Sounds interesting. Sounds exactly the same. Why is John Dee my 15th great great uncle? Why is Peter Till's great great uncle the first principal at BYU, and his name is Maeser, Carl Maser? Why did he study underneath the guy that directly studied underneath Hegel, like the Hegel of the Hegelian dialectic? Why were they making, communal living, right? Communal type situations where they gave everything over to the king, okay, or the prophet. And the FLDS continued to live this way, including what? Their women. If you make a transgression in the polygamous community, and I know this because my ex-brother-in-law, he was Warren Jeff's polygamist, and he is his nephew, okay? And so, like, specifically got kicked out of that church, and they took his wives and his children and reassign them to other men. This goes deep. There's a second anointing in the Mormon church that you get if you do what? You said it in your very first talk here about how much money you're putting in. If you give enough money and you're quote unquote worthy, aka wealthy, and you're part of these bloodlines, you can either buy it in or you have the bloodline, right? One of the two. Then you get the second anointing. And what is that? Making your place on earth made sure. When you were speaking, I'm just like sitting here going, well, other than the sex virgins, I mean, I'm sure that happens late. They just took wives to hide it instead.
So you're educating me on I mean, I'm able to extrapolate as well, but I'm making some connections too as you're talking. I did not know that the Mormon Church and that the United States, the colonial period, you're talking pre-colonial period. The Mayflower, that's 1620. That's 1620. It's 6 years before the Jewish Dutch families came over here and bought Manhattan Island and created the state of New York. It was originally New Amsterdam for another 20, 30 years before they changed it to New York when Jews from York came and joined the New Amsterdam colony. Well, what you're basically telling me is that we already had European secret societies that were already knowing what they were going to do before we were even a country here. And
the Zionitic Brotherhood.
Yes.
You know this story.
What you're talking about is a fifth column of people that are racially identifiable as the people that are settling, which are Anglo-Saxons, but have enough of another blood through their mothers that in the future, if need be, they can all switch to that other culture.
Because they literally say, people get it confused and say, Joseph Smith says he was a Jew because he's adopted by Jesus, like because the adoption law.
He was being literal.
No, he was being serious. He said literally he was half Mary Magdalene and half the other Jesus Christ bloodline, and he is their direct bloodline. So I started studying these bloodlines, and I was like, whoa. Like, well, that's kind of scary because I'm finding a lot of stuff here. Like, if this isn't supposed to be true, and remember, it doesn't matter if it is or isn't true, just like what you said before. They believe it and they are making action like real, you know. And it's crazy because they interbreed with, okay, Joseph Smith's grandma on his mom's side, his mom's name, her mother's name is Lydia Gates. Oh yeah.
Another Gate.
And they say, oh no, it's not related. Yes, it is. And somebody just said Golden Fleece Knights. 100%. We're talking about an infiltration. And if you guys read Francis Bacon, This is all going to make a whole bunch of sense. It sounds crazy, but I don't think it was.
Hey, you said Francis Bacon, but you could have said Francis Tudor and still been correct.
Right. And I am this Stuart bloodline. So here we are back to the War of the Roses, right? Here in America, trying to make a brave new world. And you have to understand, like, all of these colonies, all of this stuff, like this Pennsylvania Ephrata Zionist Brotherhood, crazy stuff that they say, oh, that's so crazy. But what do we really find out about the things that are so crazy, right? They're usually true.
Yeah, absolutely, usually true. I mean, even right now, they're publishing the absolute truth, and people aren't even shocked because we've been desensitized for 4 or 5 years through the whole COVID narrative, waiting for all this information to drop. So when they finally drop it in the last 72 hours, it's been information overload. And it's been so much information that I did a video yesterday to put my own community on point and explain to them, look, all this massive media dumps about right now, here's what's really happening. And I didn't focus on anything. I didn't mention a single item in the news in my video yesterday. All I talked about were the techniques that were being employed by the public, by the media, because somewhere in all these massive news deals on Epstein and all the people on the list and all that, this is what they want people to focus on. But because they flooded the field with so many news items, something important is slipping through the cracks.
100%. 100%. Always the hidden hand.
90 days in the future, when it's no longer relevant, people will realize, damn, did y'all know when they were talking about all this happened? And they told us, but we missed it because we were paying attention to the other 100 drops.
Oh, and this goes so much deeper, even than the Zionist Brotherhood. I want to read one more thing about this Rosicrucian theory about the Zionist Brotherhood. Okay. They allegedly migrated from a place called Mormont, Belgium, okay, to Ephrata, Pennsylvania. How do you think that's pronounced if it's a French-speaking country? Well, they don't pronounce T's, right? Mormon. Yeah. Why do you think they're so crazy about, like, don't call me a Mormon anymore? Blah. When I was young, that was what we called ourselves. We were proud to be Mormon. Okay. We were like taught that. But now if you say that, people jump, we are LDS. Don't you know, you idiot? I'm like, okay, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, you're trying to, like you said about this hidden hand with the law and Epstein, we got the hidden hand here too, because they're trying to, like, make sure nobody finds this out, right? And this group in Pennsylvania, Ephrata, Pennsylvania, they built a temple on Zion's Hill, and they practiced baptisms for the dead wearing all white clothing, exactly like the Mormon temple rites. Okay, what is going on here? And when we talk about this stuff, and then on top of it, I find out that there's freaking spy rings involved in this. What the hell is happening? It shook my brain, like, literally.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm at the point now, really, Heidi, that I've talked about so many things on my channel, unfiltered. I mean, I'm holding back right here because I'm respecting your channel. You're a fledgling channel, and you don't have a lot of history with YouTube. I mean,
right.
I'm in the partner program on YouTube, so I deal with them almost on a monthly basis. I have a Zoom call. Sometimes there's an attorney that just listens while I talk to an IT guy, and there's a marketing guru. It's a YouTube deals with different channels in different ways.
Right.
My own channel, I'm very fortunate because I'm here in a couple of more months, I'll have 15 million watch hours. And as you know, watch hours are what rules YouTube. They don't care about your subs. They don't care about how many likes. They don't care about comments, none of that shit. Everything it's because they monetize time. And when you have videos that are watched multiple times because they're very complex, it draws more people to listen to the same videos over and over and over and over, which allows YouTube to put more ads, for people who don't have premium. So this is how YouTube views it. But I'm able, because of that relationship, to say a lot of things on my channel, and they just kind of every once in a while tell me, hey, tone it down, or hey, how things going? Okay, are you
naughty?
Are you angry about anything lately? And they have little subtle ways to tell you to chill. So, and I do, but barring all that, I'm full tilt.
Right.
I'm just full tilt. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm almost at the point now, Heidi, that I think that the elite are so powerful and so well secure in their echelon. They are so well entrenched and so far along in their schemes of whatever their long-term planning is, that we've already hit the point of no return in 2020, when everything started accelerating, when everything started unraveling, when everything started becoming, to me, the apocalypse began in 2020. That's when all the great drops and all the reveals, and we started seeing things as they were. And we've been in information overload since 2020. The last normal year any of us lived was 2019. So I feel that we've already hit that tipping point, and more people are coming out talking about more and more, because they already know they've already crested the hill. And whatever long-term planning, they're already on the downslope, and there's nothing anybody talking about out here is going to change. Whatever their long-term planning is, it's so far beyond anything the population can do, which goes into a whole nother belief structure of mine, which is the reset, the Phoenix reset necessity. I know you're not well versed on the Phoenix phenomenon, but my community is, and they know. I got like 60 videos just on the Phoenix phenomenon. It is a reset protocol, and it's not designed to mess us off. It's designed to retard human technological development, so those that control us can't do it for long periods of time. They get knocked back down. And then it takes them centuries to build all that back up, which is what you described. All the little intrigues in 1620 to 1700, before, when during the colonial period, all these intrigues are necessary because it was shortly before that they got reset. They got reset sometime before the French Revolution, sometime in the 14 or 1500s. Something happened where the elite had to start over. Maybe it was right after the Crusades. I don't know, but this is what in the Archaix research, this is what I show: the historical patternings showing that something is resetting the elite's ability to just iron fist control the whole world. Every time they get on the cusp of just controlling the entire world, their world falls completely apart every single time.
100%. 100%. And I think the most important thing is the division, right? Like, we cannot let people divide other people with hate, because if you do that, that is poison for yourself. It isn't going to hurt the person that hated you or try to hold you down or do all this weird stuff to you. Ultimately, I try on my channel at least to show the history, show the truth, bring the facts, because that's all I can do, right? Like, I can't fix it. Like you said, what am I going to do about it? I can't.
Right.
But if I expose it, at least maybe I can save some other people, because honestly, Jason, they are lying to people and telling their grandmas and great grandmas that, oh, you're just going to heaven, and they do it to have the obfuscation of normalcy. This is what this really is,
Yeah.
And it's scary to me because there isn't this willingness, right? These temple prostitutes willingly, probably, I hope, were there. Okay. Maybe it was from their teachings, but they still, I hope, were there willingly. I
You talking
don't
about
know.
ancient Babylon? Most of them were born in the temple from Vestal
Okay.
virgins.
So, but I don't want people to be this on accident. Like,
Yeah.
they are using them. I hate when people use other people. I think it's gross, and I think we have to stand up and say, "No, I'm not just going to video why somebody beats the crap out of somebody till they die." Well, when did that change in our brains and say, "Yeah, that's totally fine, just record it." What? Why don't you help somebody? I don't care who they are. You don't know what
Yeah.
they're going to go on to do or anything. People change. And my family, we had some pretty crazy people. So maybe I'm just a lot different than most, but I think humanity's worth it. I do,
Yeah.
and I just want to help people, and if I have to do that, this way or any other way, at least I can bring them little steps to say, hey, maybe I'll look that up. I don't know. you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you you're directly responsible for your space. You have the creative capacity to change your world. You can even change the world of others in your immediate environment or those you're in contact with. And in this technological day and age, your family is much bigger than it was 100 years ago when you couldn't reach this many people. And the family of souls that we come into contact with through social media, they're just as close to us as they can hear our voice. So, but it's my belief that we're not here to change the world. I stringently believe that. I believe, a matter of fact, I still believe in the Christian model, which is this is a product of the God of this world, and the God of this world is evil. And even Jesus, when Jesus was being taken, when he was being arrested, or prior to his arrest, his apostles were talking to him. He specifically told his apostles that, this isn't our fight. It says, I'm not even from here. It says, I am from my Father. It says, if I was from here, then my Father would send his angels and they would fight for me and they would deliver me from the Jews. That's a direct quote. He says they would deliver me from the Jews. This is exactly what Jesus said. But he says, my kingdom is not of this world. I'm not from here. So they're not going to come and fight for him. They're not going to redeem him. I believe we're in an evil construct. This construct is an artificial world. It is a predator versus prey ecosphere. Everything here is wrong. And it's normalized to the point where, since we're little kids, we grow up desensitized from the very things that a spiritual being should be horrified of, such as the wolf rending the rabbit. Where's spirit in that? Where is there holiness in watching an insect or an arachnid like a spider injecting venom in an insect that's probably painful, paralyzes the insect so it can't fight back? The insect is then wrapped in a web and then saved as the venom slowly rots the insect out so the spider can drink it like a soup. You follow me? There's nothing holy about this construct. Yes, it's beautiful facially on the surface, but when you really start looking at everything, it's predator versus prey in the animal kingdom, in the insect, in entomology. It's predator versus prey in human social systems. It is predator versus prey in our corporate life. It's definitely predator versus prey in politics. Everywhere we look, it's all about victimizing somebody else in order to just get that gain or to acquire power or recognition or whatever. There's nothing right. This world's not worth saving. And we're not even from here. I'm going to believe, just like Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. I believe that I'm a child of the oversoul. And when this experience is over, I'm going to be somewhere that's a whole lot better than here. We teach that after death, we're going to hell, but I'm telling you, it's already here. We're in it right now. We're prodigal son. We are prodigal sons and daughters passing through the construct. And that's what this is. It's a reality of perception. It's not a real reality. So yeah, I don't believe in the historicity of the gospel, because I believe it's a spiritual document from the beginning and was meant to convey spiritual truths. And in that context, I am 100% a Christian.
So, I mean, for you, with what you believe, what do you think people should do?
The golden rule is the only rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you literally means the pattern of your life is going to be an example to all who watch you. If you do unto others as you would have them do unto you, that means on a daily basis, you're going to outwardly try to help and be altruistic, guide, teach, and protect anybody around you that needs to be, because all I'm responsible for is anything that I'm capable of doing. I'm not responsible for what's going on in Gaza. I'm not there. I'm not responsible for what's going on 2 blocks from me if I'm not there. I am responsible for every piece of information that comes into my field that the spirit thinks I need to know. It's going to let me know. If I hear a scream from a distance and it sounds like something serious, then I have been put on notice that somebody may need help. Yeah. My relationship with the oversoul is going to be determined by how I react to that stimulus. Am I going to keep raking my leaves because I don't feel like going that distance? And then I hear another scream, and then something tugs at my heart, and I ignore it. Because I'm thinking, by the time I ran that far, somebody else will already be over there helping her out. You understand? So
Mhm.
my advice is to do exactly what I do. I am going to be led by my intuition, because intuition is the predecessor of knowledge, and intuition is spiritual. Intuition comes from something higher than the experience that we're immersed in right now. Intuition is deeper than our cerebellum. It is deeper than external stimuli. Intuition brings us information, feelings, and premonitions that can only be spiritual. And if it's spiritual, then it has to come from the oversoul. If my intuition doesn't tell me to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you. If my intuition tells me that I need to talk to a stranger, and for whatever reason, I'm going to strike up a conversation. And my only advice to other people is to listen to that inner voice. It's never going to tell you wrong. It's not. We've all had those experiences where we felt like not moving forward a few feet, and all of a sudden something terrible happened in that space. You've all had that feeling before, not to go a certain place, and you hear on the news what happened there. We've all had that. Move your vehicle over into another lane. You don't know why you did it. Just felt a strong premonition. You did it. Next thing you know, an 18-wheeler you didn't even see in the rearview mirror just went 60 miles an hour past you. You would have died if you would have stayed in that lane. It happens to us all the time, but we get desensitized from it. So intuition is your bridge with the oversoul, because God's not on your shoulder talking to you. So there has to be a form of communication that you're going to recognize, and yet God still remain invisible.
And I totally respect that. I could see that standpoint for sure. I mean, for me it's different, but I get where you're coming from for sure. I see both sides of the coin. And I don't know that anything could really change my heart on that right now, but I do see the evils of this world, and I do think they're worth exposing for people so that they can watch what's happening, because like you said, the hidden hand in this is very strange. I
It
mean,
is, no doubt, no doubt.
yeah, we are every day watching, this old religion pop up again and again and again, and it's concerning. It's a lot concerning. I don't know. I don't know. It's
Yeah, it's
worrisome.
the whole fifth column idea that you propose, that they were already orchestrated through the Mormon Church. They were already orchestrated in getting a foot in the door. Because somebody made a comment in your. I'm looking at my phone. I'm
Oh,
looking at
uh-huh.
I'm looking at the comments.
Uh-huh.
Oh no, I looked at the comments, and they make a very good point. The founding fathers did worry about the Jesuits. When I was in prison, I got a hold of the writings of Dr. John Coleman. He's a patriot. His books are fascinating because he likes to spend a lot of time quoting the congressional annals, the congressional globes, and the congressional records. And he likes to quote all the founding fathers. And I could not believe, in quote after quote after quote after quote, you won't learn this in college. You will not learn this anywhere in American academia, anywhere. You have to actually read these documents. The founding fathers were all in agreement. They were having arguments about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, how it should be worded. They had arguments if they were going to include the word Jew or not, because they believe that all rights come from God and they should be extended of all men. But the founding fathers argued among themselves and said, listen, man, every single parliament, every single constitution, every single declaration of independence or sovereignty that's ever been drafted in European history was subverted by these people. It says we need to include these people in our constitution, that they cannot hold positions of law or banking in our nation. Benjamin Franklin ended up winning the argument, saying if we're going to start off as a nation under God, extending all rights, privileges, and immunities to all people, then as much as these people have proven by history that they cannot abide by laws, we still cannot exclude them. So their piousness kept them from including an addendum in the Constitution. But the original Constitution was going to exclude the Jews. Say they could not come. They could not come here and practice banking, and they could not, because their centuries long records going back to the Roman Empire of their activities. So this is all in the congressional records, congressional annals, and congressional globes. And it shocked me. So the guy that made that comment there, he's absolutely right. He said they so it sounds to me, what the picture you're painting is they already knew that. They already knew there may be a chance where they're not going to be able to go over here to the new world. So they were already had a backdoor plan where they could get in, because when your pedigree is measured only through the matrilineal line, it gives great freedom and latitude for those families to integrate into other families, and then later down the line reintegrate with more of their original blood, and then basically claim the whole family line of both lineages and say they're both Jewish. So they're really good at what they do. They've been doing it everywhere. Every European country has been infiltrated. The whole world's a captured operation. This is what I talk about on my channel. But I think that one of the reasons why they don't really mess with me is because I'm telling the truth about how devious, cunning, and genius these people are. At the same time, I tell my community, this is a construct. It is an evil world. It is full of evil people, and you're not here to save the world. You're here to save your world. You're not here to save the world. That's a job for the oversoul. I mean, one of the things about Christian ideology that I just can't reconcile is the Christian idea that we're going to save this world, when the Savior himself, Jesus, said that his kingdom was not of this world. So I'm just never going to be able to reconcile that. It's his kingdom was spiritual. It's elsewhere, and we're not there right now.
I think it's really important what you just said about the banking, because the Sykes family came here and started a bank. Of course they did, but they were very good friends.
How do you spell their last name?
Seixas, Sykes, Gershom Sykes. He's incredibly important.
Wow.
And not only did,
that
he came here, and he was actually one of very few people at George Washington's inauguration. And he definitely started, a bank. But not only did he, Joseph Smith's mom's line, Lucy Mack Smith, was a Mac. Her brother went on to start a bank in Pontiac, Michigan, where he founded Pontiac, Michigan, and started one of the first banks there too. And then we see this stuff go on, and he was involved in a weird bank scandal even back then. And then
aren't they all?
And then they claim, but what my theory is on just this part, is the Sabbatean movement. Minus the Jewish people, the Sabbatean movement is different, and it's important. And I think that for Mormons, it's a very important, because what very few Mormons understand or know, that very few people know about Sabbatai Zevi. And it was critical learning that carried on to Utah. Incredibly enough, Parowan, Utah, which is really weird. And it goes into this weird branch of the LDS church, which is a heretical branch. They're heretics. This is not just like the Sabbateans were heretics, right? None of this was mainstream, but you have to understand what continued and what they were sacrificing, what they were doing at that level when we look at that, and why it's important, because this went into bloodlines throughout everywhere. I'm talking like the founder of Stanford, all the railroad magnates, all the people that were doing mining. I'm talking about Rio Tinto being owned by the Queen, and it's here in Utah at Kennecott, who it was sold clear back in the day, along with many silver mines and William Godbey and the Godbeyites, and nobody knows about this stuff. And it blew my mind to the point where I was like, whoa. And I know people say, oh, there's going to be a new world order. And I just stepped back and went, oh, yeah, there is one before anybody got here, really.
So it kind of begs the question, since the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and early thousands, and even now, people are always talking about there's going to be a new world order. but it's already been here. It's been established long before the United States was even a colony.
Yes.
Even the Illuminati the whole Adam Weishaupt deal and the Bavarian police, every bit of that was smoke and mirrors. This New World Order was already here. It's already running things. It's already well entrenched. So it's
Yes.
even today in 2026, people are talking about, man, real soon they're going to digitize everything. AI is going to take over, and it's going to be the real New World Order. Now, the real New World Order took over about 400 years ago, and it hasn't stopped at all.
It's concerning. It's definitely concerning. The other thing I was going to tell you about the Sykes family is, his brother was one of the gentlemen of South Carolina, one of the original that started the masonry, the Scottish Rite Masonry down there. This is concerning when we're talking about not 1 degree of separation. Even these are people that they knew. They all knew each other. And then we're talking about the witchcraft trials, and his grandpa testified against Mary Eastie, and she was killed. And that was on the same day that Joseph Smith acquired the Book of Mormon plates 100 years later or something. It's the same day.
I've got a book here in my library from 1820s that goes over the what's his name? Matheson. During the Salem witch trials, he wrote all about the Salem witch trials.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
I can't remember the dude's name.
Mathers?
Mathers. Yeah, Mathers.
Yeah, Mathers.
He and his dad had the same name. But his dad was like a Southern Baptist preacher or something like that. I don't remember. But Mathers,
it's crazy because then after all that trouble and Joseph Smith's grandpa testified, okay, after that, the Goulds, which are extremely important in the witchcraft trials, go on to marry Joseph Smith's family for 6 generations. Tell me they're not hiding something there. That was planned, okay? That's planned ops right there. You said.
You think the Salem witch trials were covering up that maybe locals had found some Jewish practices going on, and the smoke screen was Christian witchcraft?
I think 100% exactly what you just said. And methinks you protest too much are the people that killed the people. They were innocent. The innocent people were killed. 100%.
Yeah, always happens that way.
Yeah, it just, everything I've studied about it, everything I'm learning about it, everything I'm seeing, and one thing that's weird for me is I'm just staring at it going, why is there always a Mormonism there? And then the other day I found this weird quote, and I was looking up something, and I did a podcast on it the other night, and I called it the Book of the Law of the Lord. Want to know why? Because Joseph Smith wrote a book, and it was his journal, and it had a lot of revelations in it from these angels he was talking to. And he called it the Book of the Law of the Lord. And Crowley gave a hat tip to old Joseph later in life. And in Moonchild, he quotes about Joseph and actually calls it out in his footnotes and says, this is Joseph Smith that I am talking about. So when we're talking about these people, these magicians, this magic, John Dee, Dartmouth, all of it was so mind-blowing. And some people have commented in the comments oh, she's tripping out. Look, you would trip out too if you learned all this stuff and you never knew. It's a lot. It's mentally a lot to even process, let alone to talk to other people about. So it's a little bit weird for me. And then, the Book of the Law of the Lord went on to be that other offshoot, Strang, the guy I told you about, went off and made his own, the Halcyon Illuminati. That was their holy book. Instead of the Book of Mormon, they called it the Book of the Law of the Lord. What is going on there? Clearly it infiltrated. Clearly. We can't be the only ones noticing, come on. And, we've got, blood sacrifice stuff happening and different things happening with some really weird circumstances. One of them is Romney's dad, if anybody ever wants to take a look at that. The SRA stuff and the things that are involved there and different stuff that goes on. Kathy O'Brien talks about Mitt Romney's dad. You know who Kathy O'Brien is, right?
Yeah.
She talks about him. I'm like, wait, why is it that we aren't looking at the whole picture? But the reason is because they're the nicest people ever. And they are. That's why those people are there. They're not faking it. Those people are good people and they are using them. And I am so against people harnessing energy from other people. If you want to harness it yourself, if you want to make your own magic, if you want to create whatever, that's fine. Whatever. Leave me out of it. Leave kids out of it. Leave animals out of it. Leave me alone. Go in the
Listen,
woods. Yeah.
that's the whole MO. I mean, I tell my community all the time, you do have to appreciate it. These people are genius at what they do. They don't destroy their enemies. They get behind their enemy lines and then use their enemies without them knowing it. Over and over and over. That's what these people do. Okay, the whole Charlie Kirk scenario is a perfect example. Charlie was about to spill the beans. He was about to publicly tell his community, guys, pursuant to new information I've got, you know what? I've been offered a lot of money to network with some people, but I'm going to tell them no. I'm going to tell them no. These people have all kinds of stuff going on in Israel, and I don't condone what's going on. He was about to come out and say that to Turning Point, his whole community. And they stopped that real quick. But they already had a plan in place, like they always do. Like I said, these people, I have a deep appreciation for the intrigue, because that's exactly what it is. Sometimes it blows my mind when I think about the levels of deception. They already had a CIA honeypot married to him, just in case he wasn't controllable. You know what I mean?
And right before he died, he was speaking about how half his team was Mormon. All his security.
Yep.
You can't.
I was about to ask you about
up.
Erica.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you about Erica, because we already know that she was in the Romania doing the child shit.
Mm-hmm.
She was endorsed by Trump years ago when she was doing a pageant deal. Yeah, she's been in the
Jesuit trained.
Videos have been released.
Mm-hmm.
2 videos have been released that says in the taglines in the videos, CIA training tapes. And she's giving speeches and all that. It's like, these are like 2016, 2017, 2018. So nothing surprises me anymore. Like I said, these people are genius at what they do. They're
100%. Even people are saying, well, he's not gone or whatever. And even if he wasn't, it's still an ingenious plan.
It's still genius what they did. They took over a fundamental, hard Christian right organization, and those people are still giving a tremendous amount of money that's all going into leftist Jewish pockets. They're genius. Just like the Black Rifle Company. They got over $500 million of profit from right-winged conservative Christians, because Black Rifle label promoted the idea that we're pro-guns, we're pro-patriot, pro-American, anti-immigrant, and everybody started buying Black Rifle hats, t-shirts, bumper stickers, and coffee. And all along, it was owned by Nancy Pelosi and the other Democrats in Congress. All along, it was owned by the enemy. So they are genius at what they do.
Yep. Really they are. And the point is like, whether or not we want to realize it, whether or not, and I'm reading comments off to the side for people that are making weird comments about my eyes. I'm reading the comments on the side screen. Hello. But yeah, no, I'm just telling them because it's silly. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is Solomonic magic. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the things that are, integrated to the temple, it's Solomonic magic. All of it is Solomonic magic. 100%. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. They can call it folk magic all day long. Their church put out a book that said it was folk magic, and it isn't. It's far greater than that, right? And if magic didn't work, you know what? People would have stopped doing it a long time ago. Okay? A long time ago. And so I just think that's interesting. And the Erica Kirk thing, she has family out here in Salt Lake City that are Jewish. So there's that.
Oh, yeah. If you strip away the blonde hair and the makeup and all that, I've already looked at her face. Yeah, she could very well pass for Jewish. There's no doubt.
Well, I don't think she is, but her is like a married in, but it doesn't matter. She's there all the time, just like Trump's daughter, for anybody that doesn't know that. But they can marry in. It doesn't matter. And I'm not against one. I'm against all. Look, I'm against the cabal that runs this world, whether it's a Jesuit or whether it's a Jewish person. And it is actually, the answer is yes. And for anybody that looks into cults or any even serial killers. Like Ted Bundy was a Mormon. The Green River Killer was a Mormon. Like, come
Ted Bundy
on.
was.
He was a
Yeah.
Mormon.
Who else is who else
Green
is
River
famous?
Killer.
Who else is famous? Who else is Muslim? I mean, Mormon and famous.
Oh, as far as like serial killers,
No, no,
there's
no.
a
I'm talking
lot.
about somebody
Oh,
that would
just famous.
it would surprise us.
Oh, there's a lot of them. I think I don't want to misquote. I better look them up. But there's a lot of
Yeah.
Mormons that have become famous, and it's
What
not
about
surprising.
presidents?
Well, the thing about the presidents is it doesn't matter because the Rothschilds, the thing about what people have to realize is the Mormon church went and did early missions to Russia. They went and did early missions over to England, and they completely, integrated themselves with the Rothschilds with money and banking and railroads. And I can prove all of that. And so when we look at this stuff and we see how it builds layer upon layer, and then they start marrying into families, right? We see this network, like you're saying, completely be built. That's how it is. So I just think it's wild to me that we can't 100% see that all the time. And it doesn't really matter what we call it. It could be a movement, it could be a cult, it could be a this, it could be a that. But at the end of the day, it's definitely interesting, especially where the Mormon church has roots in the process church. People probably don't know that. You know who Kerry Thornley is? I'm sure you know.
I don't.
He let me tell you what he started the movement. He was an integrate part of JFK, and then he went off and made some crazy cult his own self, and he's the founder of Discordianism. You know about Discordianism? It's very
Educate me.
strange. So it's another culty offshoot. This is constantly what they're doing. Okay. And so Carrie Wendell Thornley, he's involved with Lee Harvey Oswald. He goes off and makes some woo woo hippie cult situation and all of this stuff. He was raised a Mormon. When you guys step back and see, like, why is there always a Mormon there? Elon Musk's money guy, his number one money guy is Jared Birchall. He's a Mormon. Why is Peter Thiel's great uncle here and he's a Mormon? What the hell is going on? It's not just them, it's
Wow.
all of them. Yeah, it's like all these people. And then they get involved, like I said, through David M. Kennedy. David M. Kennedy was a huge, important Mormon. And who was his best friend? I know you'll know this one, Michelle Sindona.
Yeah.
Who's Michelle Sindona, the Pope's banker.
So that's interesting because the Rothschilds, of course, are Jewish.
Mhm.
The seal of the royal house of Rothschilds on the Vatican bank door. That's
There you go.
In
Yep.
Archaix, I'm always talking about the underworld and how they already have underworld cities down there. They're already populated, and there's exchange. There are teams on the surface. They wear masks and they're clothed, and you would think that a famous person just got out of a car and went over here, and it's one of his doppelgangers. They got the mask technology is amazing. They've got underground facilities down there that are
here
luxury.
too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
all over the world now, luxury. So these reset facilities are there for a reason. And it's not even a secret. You can look up the legislation from 1972, 73, 74, and 75, and you will find out that congressional legislation was passed in order to put aside slush funds for building underground facilities in the United States. So,
Guess what, Jared Birchall, guess where he was working when him and Elon Musk met? At the boring company, tunnels.
oh yeah. Isn't it interesting that when you look at the logos on the gigantic boring machines, they say U.S. Air Force.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is underground, but it says
Yep.
Air Force. And when Trump wants everybody to believe like Galactic Federation BS and that we're doing some Star Wars type shit and we're really technologically advanced, he keeps throwing out Space Force like it's an intelligence agency and a military group that's going to be doing things in space. But they're talking about internet digital space. That's all Space Force is. Space Force is thousands of employees that literally get in your business online. That's who they are.
Yeah, that's the hubs right here in Salt Lake for the NSA. So I hear you on
Yeah.
that one
Yeah,
100%.
man.
And that's the point is I think it was infiltrated early. I know it was, with spy rings and whatnot, and all of them are involved, and they hid a lot of things. These things were hidden on purpose. And if it was such BS, then how come I wasn't taught it in history school? Because you know what, I was taught all about Christopher Columbus. People can say what they want, but at the end
Yep.
of the day, the hidden is always the thing, right? We
It's
always see that.
the hidden hand.
Absolutely. You better believe it. One nation under Freemasonry. And I don't mean just Scottish Rite Freemasonry. It's way older than that. People need to
Yeah.
get that through. Like Martinism is way older than that. Cagliostro is a very interesting human being. You probably need to go back further,
Yeah. You'd have
And
to go
so,
back. Things were solidifying in the Renaissance. So
yes.
yeah, during the Renaissance, the power structures were pretty much solidifying. The rise of the Rothschilds pretty much brought the Jews into the fold. Up until that time, the Jews had about 1,000 years of really bad times in Europe, always being kicked out of different countries. However, in the Middle East, the Jews were still running stuff. Yeah,
Mm.
so yeah, they were running stuff all the way to Iran, Persia, and Parthian Kingdom, northern India, part of Pakistan. They were running. Most people don't know that the largest Jewish population outside of Israel for over 1,000 years was always Egypt. Yeah,
Mm.
the Alexandria area was packed full of Jewish people. So the Roman Empire had a lot of problems with them, but we don't need to get into all that. But they've they've always been excellent administrators because the Jewish people speak every language in the world. They were operating the trade routes, so they can always stay with each other when they're doing the trade routes. They're moving books, scrolls, information, banking, everything going along the trade routes. Jews were in control of that, and in every European country, there were always Jewish communities that spoke the local language, and they all spoke Yiddish, so they could sit there and communicate with each other. And everywhere the Jews traveled in the ancient world, there were always Jewish communities that spoke the local dialects. So
Mhm.
this gave them an advantage, and this is why the Jews started getting very, very rich playing both sides from the middle when it comes to the Crusades. Most people don't know how rich the Jews got from the Crusades. When Christians went to go die on Muslim battlefields, it was the Jews that banked on that, because they were the ones that gave loans out to all the fiefdoms and the baronies and the dukedoms. They gave these huge loans out so they could provision their men, and they could get wagon trains, and the knights could get outfitted and get their weapons, and it would cost a lot. And the Jews would give them all that money, and they'd sign that contract. They would go die on Muslim battlefields, and the Jews would confiscate their estates, sell off the people on the estate as chattel. Sometimes whole entire white populations in Europe were put under bond, chained, and marched to Constantinople, where the Turks, with the Muslims, would then sell white Christians off to different Muslims for all kinds of stuff. It's a dark history, and most people don't even know it. For over
Oh,
600 years, Europeans were getting aired out bad.
yep. Yep. Well, and then we see that crossover too. And they're German Ashkenazi. And then we see that crossover with the queen. And she did this whole Celtic ritual. If people haven't seen that, people should probably go look that up on August 6th. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It popped out to me because that's my birthday. I was like, what's she doing? What? And I
Yeah,
seen her do this whole weird thing. And I was like, oh, that's creepy. But to know that the Nile of the Nine, and to know that the literal Mormons claim, with the Jewish star on it, this whole divine right to rule, and they claim their lineage clear back through the Davidic line, not by proxy, not by baptism, by reality.
wow.
That's a little
Yeah,
scary if you ask me.
yeah. What gets me is every psyop on TV. They give us the Jewish tales. It's almost become comical. It's like, if I see anything unusual on the news and I'm watching something, if I see it's unusual, I have to Google it to see if that's a part of a ritual. Like when Trump lost his shoe, when Hillary Clinton lost her shoe, and then Trump gets shot in the ear, his ear's bleeding. I was like, damn, man, that's straight out of the Talmud. It's if somebody owes so much money that they have to become a slave, their ear is cut. I say, what the hell? All these rituals, they tell you what parts people are playing. So when I find out Trump, the bullet is symbolic for the cutting of the ear. He bled on his ear. So I was like, wow, man, this is a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what it is Trump has to play this role because he was literally saved from loans he was given because his own real estate empire was about to go bankrupt. And maybe it was the Rothschilds, I can't remember, but somebody, it was Jew, whoever they were, they were
The
Jewish.
mob.
They
The
came
mob.
in,
Yeah.
they came in and turned around and gave him all the money he needed to cover his IRS, save his real estate, and he got a whole bunch of money. And then right after that, his daughter is dating Jared Kushner. You know what I mean?
Well, his
Yeah.
best friend was Roy Cohn. You know that story,
Yeah,
don't you?
I know that
Speaking of
name too.
bankers. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to know, like, first of all, a lot of people speculate. I just look at it, but it's very curious to me that he will be the Jewish savior, the actual one that they say, like, that is their savior. It's very different than the Christian savior, and people need to look at that. But that's what a lot of people have said. And there's a lot of things that align. And he knows some things because what was his hotel that was causing him to go bankrupt named? One of the ones, Atlantis. Of course it was.
Yeah,
Of
but
course it was.
here's my counterpoint to that.
He knows.
He's already old.
Right.
And
No, he's gonna usher in. He's gonna usher in
okay,
the
yeah,
he'll be
I
the
can
one.
agree. I can agree with that because I know a lot of prominent Jews thinks he's the magician.
No, yeah, he'll usher in the Antichrist
Yes.
is what it would be.
I think the one that would fulfill the role is his son. His son is very young.
6'7" or something, this
Yeah, he's
kid.
very young, like Nephilim.
Yeah, that's
But,
what I said.
yeah, so
Ugh.
his son could do it. I don't know. Oh, I do know this. You're familiar with Ingersoll.
Mhm.
And
100%.
Barron being the last president.
Mhm.
It's a
Yep.
book from like 1898 or 1899. And
Yep.
Ingersoll Lockwood wrote a story. I have that book in my library. I showed it to my community, but it literally says in a book 120 something years ago that Baron Trump will be the last president. So there's a lot of people who think that the Trumps are time travelers, but
I'm just saying, Howard Hughes
you got some intel?
Oh, man.
Come on.
So Howard Hughes, I mean, there's a lot of speculation about Howard Hughes and what he knew and how smart he was. And if you want to talk about drills, who made the drill bit that made the drilling company so important? Howard Hughes' father did. There would be no drilling of earth at all like the way we drill now without that bit, okay? And that's what made the fortune of Howard Hughes, okay? And so his father died, his mother died immediately, first of a miscarriage, and it was a tubal, and then his dad had a heart attack, so he ended up with all this money, and he comes out here and starts a movie production thing first, but also who's in the movies at this time, right? Well, that would be Joe Kennedy. A lot of people forget that he had that. But when we see this, we know one thing with Howard Hughes. He ends up hiring the Mormon Mafia. And people may not know this. I have a 4-part series about the Mormon Mafia on my Spotify. And it talks all about how the Mormons basically weaseled their way into everything that has to do with Howard Hughes, including the running of Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which continued on CRISPR gene editing and all of his money through that after his death. And they say that he was a time traveler. And they say, and I've heard many of people say this, and I don't know because I'm not this special, that Mormon temples have a lot of knowledge about time travel as well, including their genetic place where they store all of their genetic records up in the mountain where they blew a hole, but it's guarded with AK-47s and people that are holding them and gates and razor wire, and you can't access it, all for papers. Are you serious? Like, I don't know, but nobody knows because you can't get into it. So when we talk about all this stuff, it's so critical because it goes into the mob, it goes into Permindex, it goes into JFK. Like, it's such a deep dive that actually when I went, I didn't mean to. It was an accident. I was looking at something about Mormons, and I was like, Howard Hughes, how does he fit in this? And I started looking, and I mean, Aristotle Onassis is even better. Check this out. I haven't done my episode on him yet because this book is just his FBI declassified docs. I can't even I've got enough information in my brain, but I've got to figure out how to put it forth. And he knew some things too. He had a full fireplace on his super fancy yacht, the Christina. It made of lapis lazuli. Tell me they don't know the things. Tell me they don't know the things. They know. They know.
Mm.
Where were they drilling with Howard Hughes with the Howard Hughes company for this top secret thing for the government? He was working with them all the time. They were doing some drilling by the Azore Islands. I mean, come on. Like they knew. They knew. I think they found some things. I really do. And they were supposed to be retrieving a submarine that crashed, but I don't think that's what they were doing. And why were they there? Oh, cuz he happened to own the island that President Bush rented for his drilling rigs over for the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Come on. What is happening? Like I told my husband one day because he could see I was losing it. He's like, "You okay?" And I said, "No." And he goes, okay, anything I can do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Well, you want to tell me about it?" And I just unloaded like the most ton of blah 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 blah. I just let it all out. And he's like, "Oh my gosh. So who killed JFK?" And I was like, "Everybody." And he just was like, "Okay." And he just went away. But it's crazy. It makes you feel crazy. It absolutely makes you feel crazy. And you want to get into NASA? Like Don Lind, he's a Mormon. You know who Don Lind was? He was over NASA. Like, come on. There's always a Mormon there. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing there? I wasn't even studying about you right now. The Seance of the Nine is what actually brought me into Howard Hughes. You know about that? That was weird.
No, but I know I've always suspected that the Spruce Goose, the gigantic airplane project, was really just to cover for a bunch of money that was being moved.
That too.
Because NASA does that
Mhm.
too. They plan these space programs, and it's going to take so much billions of dollars to do this. But and then the project either gets axed or it blows up on the launch pad. And it's like where's that money really going? You know what I mean? I just
Exactly.
I
Exactly,
don't.
it's strange. And like you said, like the whole like time travel stuff, they say that's why Howard Hughes went crazy is because he jumped too many times. That was like the term they used, that he jumped. And there's other countries that note, just like the Ingersoll Lockwood book, there's books, these really old books that talk about Howard Hughes being out in like some crazy place in Italy way back when. And so I'm like, well, how does that happen? You know?
So
But
anytime I hear these stories in modern times, I don't know about the jumping. I don't have I haven't had any contact with that modern literature, but I'm always referencing the past. So we do have an example in the past
yes.
that's never been rectified. It's a
Integratron.
it's
Yes.
117-year period where a man did not age at all, and he was seen and he had visited most of the important courts of Europe, and he was known by the nobility, and they called him Saint Germain, the Comte Saint Germain. And he blew people's minds because no matter what country he was in, he spoke the language fluently, and he could speak the language of the visitors of the court, and he knew all the court etiquette, and his mastery of history was unmatched. People were amazed. They could listen to him for hours talk about history. He could just go back and forth in time like it was nothing. But it was 117 years the Comte Saint Germain had been seen over and over in all these deals. And one of the most compelling stories to me was a woman in her 80s where she was mortified when she saw the Comte Saint Germain walk into the court and was talking to people like nothing had ever happened, and she couldn't bring herself to talk to him because she knew him when she was like a 20-year-old girl,
Oh,
and
wow.
he looked like the same old man that he looked at when he saw her again. It shocked the shit out of her. But it's that's the
Wild.
only that's the only thing. There's books written about the Comte Saint Germain. He's a very intriguing individual.
Well, and
But
John D, right? We know that he said, like, listen, there's not a reason why people would do these weird things, okay, seances, temple things for LDS, whatever you want to call it, except Steiner told us why. I like reading about Steiner because he does a lot of mm, he does a lot of things the way he presents them that I can understand it. And he talks about the ethers and piercing the ethers, and that there's these things in the ethers where if you pierce it, you can find things out. You can find out other like ways to talk to these things. And I know this for a fact. I know that certain people have absolutely talked to things outside of this realm. Okay, period. And I think they bring this information. And one of these people that I can at least prove in this world is Godby. I mentioned this guy named Godby to you. And he was a table tapper, but he was a Mormon and he left the Mormon church because he got thrown out because he was an occultist. And they said he was godless and whatever. And so he went on his way and he made his own people. Well, he was investing and he became very rich. And guess what? Godby drilling is still a thing today. But anyways, long story short is how he knew where to put his money or what to do. He said, "Well, that's how I found out. Like I would do this table tapping stuff and they would tell me." Like there's obviously something that comes through, right? Like
Mhm.
it can't be BS every time when these people are making like huge money purchases and they work out. I mean,
Mhm.
how do you explain it? You know what I mean? Same thing with Howard Hughes. How do we explain it? I don't
Yeah.
know. You
How do we
know?
explain the Barron Trump deal? Yeah,
I
I get
don't
it.
know. Yeah, it's so wild to me. So I think you're right. I think there are definitely things in this world that we don't understand, like Saint Germain, for example, like all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of things from the nine, which I could come on and chat with you about, but it gets very interesting. That's where I ended up at JFK, and I never cared. I never cared about JFK. I was just like, yeah, it's a setup. Like that's what happened at the end, but it wasn't the end. And it got really weird. And it goes into the guy that did telepathy tapes. And it just gets so weird that you're like, what is happening? You know?
Well, so you also have to be on the lookout for when you're. We have these intelligence agencies that they they have groups inside them that their only assignment is to throw out false trails for whatever conspiracy is out there. There are still false trails being thrown out about JFK's assassination. They
Well,
don't stop. They
this
don't
was
stop.
before he died. That's the
Yeah.
interesting part of the nine. They were actually channeling the Aeneid, the nine, and it was before he ever died. And the people who are the people that are there, the Astors, all these very important people. Like I can't think off the top of my head. All the first family, like all the important
You
people.
talking about Waldorf Astoria who died on the Titanic?
Yeah, Astor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was his daughter. And so
Wow.
she died right after this, but it's just crazy to me the things that kind of interconnected into it, but it goes weirdly into Permindex, and I'm like, what? That shouldn't even make any sense. But these first families, my point being, these first families were planned. Look, there was an infiltration of spies and certain people on the Mayflower, this Rosicrucianism, whatever, that brought things here, some of these old world things like what we're talking about, right? This sacrificial stuff, Sabbatean stuff, okay? Plus it came from other places. Like they're coming in from other ways too, but this is one, and we see it time and time again. It's infiltrating all over the place. And it's the old world ways. It's the old religion ways. It's this more evil satanic type stuff, okay, to me anyway. Blood
Okay.
blood sacrifice, weird stuff, whatever. Evil, we'll just say evil, okay? And it's all coming in from all these different areas, but there's definitely, been a John D connection to the Mayflower strictly through the physician that was there.
So
And
I have a question that goes to the heart of the matter.
yeah,
Oh, this isn't any Johnny on the spot type deal. It's there's
you're
no
fine.
wrong or right answer. There's no wrong or right answer, but it's like it's the elephant in the room. If so much subterfuge is required in order to infiltrate a population, if so much intrigue, conspiracy, so much energy and hidden finances has to be moved, if this type of activity is what we are finding, and we are, who's the enemy? Why is all of that necessary? What opposing force are we missing? I've always theorized
the
on my
theys,
own
right?
channel. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always theorized on my own channel that the elite are bifurcated, and there are two groups.
Yes,
There
100%.
are two groups,
Luciferian
and
and
they are
Malachian.
not getting along. But
No.
you can't really tell. But so, but if all this intrigue is necessary to infiltrate all these governments, instead, if you have this much money and you have this much spies and you have this much prestige and you're able to do all these things, well, there's no intrigue necessary. You just mow over the people and do what you want to do. But that's never what's happening. It's always by
No.
subterfuge. It's always done in secrecy. We always discover it ex post facto. So it begs the question, what are we missing? Is there a benefactor family that's actually opposing all this in their own ways, and we just don't even understand what's really happening in the media? Is a war between two opposing groups, both vying for control of us, and maybe neither one of them has our best interest in heart, but maybe one group is actually more of a benefactor because of their lineage and what they represent, or their bylaws or protocols. So if this huge Jewish front that's multifaceted through different ethnicities, but they're still Jewish, has been doing this for centuries to take power, then that necessarily implies power is already possessed by someone else.
So I spoke to a guy that runs White Lotus podcast. His name is slipping my mind at the moment, but that is his podcast. And he talks about Luciferians and Malachians, right? And I always found his theories to be really interesting because it's a different type of control for each one. And he goes over this. This is like his whole passion. And I thought it was very interesting the way he presented it. Is it right? I don't know, but I do think it's interesting. But I know this. They need us. We are their batteries. They can't just mow us over and get rid of us, number one. I don't think they can. I think they can sacrifice us and use us and do things. But ultimately, what they want is to control us so that we can continue to be the slave. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, why bother with, like Steiner said, they're going to vaccine us into oblivion, and then we're going to be crazy and do whatever they say. And then, other people talk about, even Steiner completely talks about like, don't just give in to things. Like I really like his work, and people have a hard time with that because he's an occultist. But I'm just saying there's good and bad in everything. Like, don't just throw it out. You got to look at the whole picture. I think there has been many that have tried to sound the bell. I think there has been many that have had that greater light, right? That have tried to help one way or another, at least help us have an alliance. I mean, I hope. And not for this world per se, because that's really not my point. It's for the people. The people are what I concerned about. Like I am concerned about being good to my fellow man, helping when I can. And maybe that's the nurse in me. I've been a nurse for 27 years, and I'm a mom and I'm a grandma and all these things. And so, like, I don't know if I could ever get rid of that in me, that nature of being, a caregiver and helping and a helping hand. I've helped so many people on podcasting. I've helped myself get screwed. You know what I mean? Like, really, honestly. And
Yeah.
I'll do it again because my husband said, well, just don't do it, or don't do this nice thing or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'm like them, and I don't want to be, there are those of us with a light that is different. I believe, I truly believe that. And I believe we're not supposed to harness it. And mine, I believe, came from pain, to be quite frank. I was born, and within the first year of my life, I had a horrific skin graft. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, like all these different medical problems, let alone I became a ward of the court. Like it's a big fat mess. Okay. And when you go through a lot of things like that, and then I had cancer before I was 40, like just so many things. When you go through real pain, I think you are able to help others because they see it in you. And I know you'll understand this because you've been there. I think only hurt people can help hurt people.
I agree.
And that's yeah.
Well, I do agree that those with painful pasts absolutely are better equipped to help others. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
We lost my brother to an accidental drug overdose. And, my dad spent the majority of his life, or my early life, at least, in prison. And so I had all these really hard things. And I think that my particular thing that I feel moved to do is help those that don't feel like they can tell other people things. I can't fix it for them, but I guess it's like a kinship, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think ultimately we matter. Ultimately, there are so many people that matter, and everybody should matter. And that's what they don't want you to believe. That's this whole business of chronic depression. I'm not saying I don't ever get depressed. I'm not saying I'm
Right.
never angry, but you make your own stuff there. Like I have been kicked enough times where I could have stayed down, but I will never stay down, and I'll help up somebody else too. Bleeding and bloody, whatever, I'll help the next person up like that. That I think ultimately is really something that they hate about humanity, the theys. And I don't think
Yeah.
they're 100% normal. I do believe in the whole
Of
angels
course they're
came
not. Of
down.
course they're not
Yeah.
normal. Yeah.
I think angels came down and mated with human women and made some really weird stuff. I really believe in that, and I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, I don't believe that we're just supposed to harness it for ourselves or money either. That's
I
probably
agree.
not the point.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. I don't believe anything in this world is worth saving. I believe that we're heading toward a much better place. That we
Just
are
the
immortal.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, just people. Yeah, we're immortals. We're just wearing avatars that are made from the same substance of the construct. That's why that's why we war against our bodies all the time. These bodies belong to the construct. They don't belong to us. But if I could close with
Yes.
with that point, the point I was making earlier about who are they up against. So we haven't answered that, and we may never know the answer, but I tell my community often, I remind them that we have to be fearless in our endeavors to even discuss these topics. And the very fact that we can proves that the world is not totally fallen.
Right.
We must have hidden benefactors somewhere because we're still openly talking about things they really don't want us talking about. So I feel that the spirit is moving and that it is powerful, and that I don't know what in the physical aspect of our experience here they fear, but they must fear something because everything they do is by tacit agreement. Everything they do is trying to sucker people into contracts. So they can get power over them. They don't take anything by force unless they do it. They do it through some type of litigious instrument. So my closing point is that for those listening, that although we can't identify what or who our benefactors are, they're certainly here. Or people like us wouldn't be able to openly talk about these things. There is a benefactor force here. It is protecting, it is guiding, and it allows us to continue this search and this discussion. So that's all I wanted to close with.
I love that. I think so too. I think that hope is the grand thing they cannot stand, right?
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. But hey, I haven't even told my community about tomorrow's video.
Oh.
Tomorrow's video is going to be a slammer. We're talking about the real, true meaning of Pandora's box and what was left in it.
That sounds like a good one. That sounds like a good one. You guys better check it out.
That's tomorrow's video.
Every time I talk to you, it is an ultimate pleasure. I am so happy you came on my show. And I know people might think we're a mismatched pair, but I don't care. I have a great time talking to you.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't even listen to the critics. I don't even care. My own community is all that matters to me, and my community is awesome.
100%.
So I know a bunch of them are in the chat right now. I recognize a lot of the names.
Well, let people know that don't know you from my people where to find you and all your amazing work.
You can just go to archaix.com.
Awesome.
Archaix.com will take you wherever you want to go.
There you go, guys. So if you like this, we did one on his channel. He has a ton of stuff out there. When I say a ton, I mean a ton. So I definitely have been binging since we had our chat. You guys got to go check it out. There's a lot of information there. You've also written books, right? So
yeah, I've got a whole lot of books written.
So check that out as well. All at the same website, correct? Yes.
The books you can get it all there.
Awesome.
Everything's okay. That's the central hub to everything Archaix.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody that came in to watch the live. I appreciate you guys. I know you're taking time out of your lives to come and listen to us. So I appreciate you. And I send out much love. I will never stop doing that. So thank you so much.